Welcome back to another devlog. In this stream, we are continuing our asset level spawner. I'm working in blueprints still. In this particular stream, I was doing a little bit more of showing the ins and outs of Unreal, the content browser, the project settings, editor settings. I just pulled up the editor widget, which I use to activate the level spawner, and I'm currently setting up the UI of that editor utility widget. So using a series of drop down boxes, and it's like a 3 or 4 step process. So the first step, you're going to select the type of asset that you want to spawn. The second step, you're going to select some of the characteristics that you can change on that, and then the third step is usually like a material step, where if you can change certain things about the material, whether it has like mud or dust or blood on it. I'm going over it now again, and then when you get through all of that, you click spawn the asset. So yeah, like I said, it's a pretty simple process to use it. I don't know if I'm going to release it to the marketplace. I don't know if I can, if I have the time to really make it pretty dynamic. I would like to do that if I was going to release it. So it might be something that I end up doing once this particular game here is released, and maybe take some downtime to kind of unwind, and decompress. I could possibly take this asset spawner and maybe work on it and release to the marketplace. Yes. So I'm using a series of different custom events. I'm also using interface events as well, so that way each asset is basically its own blueprint. So that way I use the editor utility widget to communicate with the asset spawner that is placed into the level, and from there we can select the different blueprints that we need to spawn in the level through the utility editor utility widget. So that way, we can create some interface functions that we can use repetitively and just change as needed. The functionality of each one. I'm using a lot of switch on nodes, so depending on the type of variable that I'm using quite a bit of enums and ints, and I'm switching on either one. So depending on the information that I'm sending into the switch, I'm either switching on enum or I'm switching on the integer. So like if you're wanting to determine maybe how many candles are being spawned at one time, then I would have a limit, so maybe you can spawn either 1 or you can spawn up to 3. So what I would have is a event, and that event would have a integer value being returned. So that way I can drag off of that pin and basically create a switch on int node. And if you set it to 1, then I would have a case where only 1 would be spawned, and I would have whatever logic needs to be executed off of that. Or if you select 2 candles, then so on and so on and so on. So that's one of the things I like about the switch nodes. So and one of the things that I'm doing is I'm actually executing code whenever the value on the drop-down box changes. So that way, when you select the drop-down box like I'm doing now, you change the value, then it actually triggers that event. And basically what I'm doing is getting the value of the enum, and then I'm executing code off of that. So it's really cool, pretty cool. Yeah, so so with this commentary, I'm also going to be just talking about different things in general. Not necessarily about what's even going on the screen, but just anything that I might feel that needs to be talked about in this particular video or in general. So one thing that's coming to mind is with this particular asset spawner, I would like to eventually make it to the point where I'm almost exclusively working in it, right? So that way, if something is being added to the game, there's going to be different things like roads and rocks and boulders and not necessarily just landscape oriented things, but like broken pieces of road, maybe things like that, or even whole sections of roads, right? And that's something that I can actually put in the asset spawner and kind of create those things dynamically to a certain degree, right? So like if I wanted to make a road, I can make it to how many sections I want. Then I can determine whether it's going to turn to the left or turn to the right. I could even possibly make it if it needs an incline or not in the roads. I can spawn certain parts, sections of the road to have maybe potholes or cracks, things like that. Same things with, even with like bridges or whatever, like highways or ramps. So I feel like it has a great deal of possibilities that could help out with development. So yeah, so I want to I'm here, like I said, trying to plan out the widget at this time and trying to make it as very self-explanatory as possible. So I'm adding different various descriptions, so that way if need be, anybody can use it, right? That's on the team. Or if I do plan to take it to the marketplace, I could, it would be pretty easy to use and pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, so another thing that comes to mind is something like this could even be used on enemies. So maybe we're making a enemy spawner. So and maybe we drop that actor blueprint in the level, and then from there we could set certain parameters on that spawner to where, you know, maybe we determine how many enemies are going to spawn out of it in total before the spawner is disabled or destroyed. Maybe out of those total amount of enemies, like let's say there were like 10 or maybe 20, maybe we can say, okay, out of 20 enemies, we're going to allow 5 of them to be red enemies, 5 of them to be green enemies, another 5 to be purple enemies, and then maybe the last 5 to be yellow enemies. And it'll be easy to do that using this method here. So yeah, so if you'd like to see the process in real time, we stream Monday through Thursdays, 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and we run really till whenever. So on average, usually about 3 in the afternoon. On Fridays and Saturdays, we stream from anywhere between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to about 1, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. So feel free to come and join us. Have lots of fun, lots of different conversations. And that's over on twitch.tv/NightFox1, NITEFOX1. So here I'm tidying up my blueprints as best as I can, trying to make all of the connections as straight as possible. I'm actually leaving one on the end, which I just fixed. So yeah, and there's just a various amount of methods that you can kind of do blueprint organizations. Like you can collapse things to macros. You can, if you're doing a repetitive task over and over again, you can use turn those nodes into a function. You know, and maybe even if something's getting too long, maybe you can even use an event node, as long as it's gonna not hamper performance on your game much, right? So. All right, so we are coming pretty close to the end of our video here. I just would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we have more videos. We'll be doing more stuff as more videos release and the game goes further in development. Thank you for watching.